During the earthquake, my fiancé risked his life to save me. And because of that, his childhood sweetheart, Julia Bell, lost the ability to use her right hand. She could never hold a pen again. After that incident, he gave most of his salary to Julia and even brought her mother into our home, insisting that I help take care of her. From the constant caregiving, I became physically worn out, and by my early 40s, my hair had turned completely gray. One day, I accidentally walked in on Julia, nestled in my husband Darren Miller's arms as they confessed their love to each other. Furious, I lashed out and struck Julia. But her biological son, my own son Max, shoved me down the stairs in a fit of rage. I cracked my skull and blood spilled everywhere. I died instantly. The next time I opened my eyes, it was back to the day of the earthquake. This time I chose not to call out for help. In the year 2000, just like always, I was taking care of my husband's paralyzed mother and Julia's mother. I went out to buy the beef my mother-in-law wanted and dragged my exhausted, numb body home. As I passed the stairwell, I heard a man and woman speaking in an intimate tone. Something compelled me to walk over. Darren, when are you finally going to divorce her? Be patient, baby. I can't leave her yet. Who else would take care of your mom and mine? It was like a thunderbolt struck me. The voices belonged to my husband, Darren Miller, and his childhood sweetheart, Julia Bell. They were wrapped in each other's arms, their gazes tender and full of affection. They looked so wronged, as if my presence in their lives was some burden that forced them to sneak around like this. Because I was the one caring for their elderly mothers, they felt justified in having an affair. Blinded by rage, I kicked the stairwell door open and hurled everything I was carrying at Darren. Darren Miller, Julia Bell, you two are shameless. Hazel Reed, what the hell are you doing? Darren shouted immediately, shielding Julia behind him as if I were the threat. He stood across from me like we were enemies. Julia stepped forward and with a pitiful look on her face said, Hazel, it was you who called out for Darren during the earthquake. He's only been taking care of me and loving me out of guilt. I slapped her hard across the face. Hazel Reed. Darren barked as he pulled Julia into his arms protectively. Just then my son Max rushed in and shoved me violently. You're an evil woman. How dare you hurt Mommy Julia? I stumbled backward and slipped down the stairs. Blood spilled everywhere. Darren. Max. Hazel's bleeding. Let her be. She's a wicked woman. If it weren't for her, you wouldn't have lost your ability to draw. She owed you a lifetime. She deserves to die. All she ever did was take care of Grandma and Granny Bell. And she acts like she's carrying the weight of the world. Julia smirked at me and flexed her agile right hand in front of me, mocking me. My husband, my son, they both stood by the side of the mistress who ruined me. They looked down at me as I lay dying, so high and mighty. I hated them. I hated them all. Then I opened my eyes again, and I was back 25 years ago. The day of the earthquake. I shot upright in the rubble. It was 1975. I had been reborn. Grace. Grace. Darren's panicked voice rang out. In my past life, she was the one he tried to save. But this time, an overwhelming instinct for survival made me cry out when I heard his voice. Darren Miller, the head of the steel plant's equipment division, was leading a team to search for survivors. He couldn't just leave me there. He shouted, "There's someone over here," and then left. He only stayed for less than a minute. Yet, the injury Julia suffered that day was pinned on me for the rest of my life. This time I pressed my hands tightly over my mouth and stayed silent. Soon Darren and his team left. I waited quietly for someone else to come. Besides the steel plant's crew, a unit led by Du Jun was also involved in the rescue. Half an hour later, another voice echoed through the ruins. Is anyone there? Anyone? Help! Help! I shouted at the top of my lungs. Don't be afraid, a warm and powerful voice replied. I finally exhaled in relief. Rescue had come. Light began to break through the darkness around me, and I let myself finally collapse into unconsciousness. When I came to again, I was greeted by the same old scolding. Hazel Reed, Julia is traumatized and needs to be hospitalized. Give her your bed. Sis Hazel, Julia said with fake sweetness. With so many injured people, isn't it a bit selfish to hog a hospital bed all for yourself? One was angry, the other manipulative. Hazel, go make something nice for Julia to eat, they demanded. She needs better nutrition, someone said. I replied coldly, I'm not Julia's mother. Hazel Reed, how dare you insult Julia? Darren exploded with rage. Oh, I insulted your mother? I sneered, grabbed the glass on my bedside table, and flung it hard at his nauseating face. I'm not her mother, and I'm definitely not yours. So, what are you both doing here pretending to be some kind of filial saints at my bedside? What? Has the food at the steel plant turned your brains into pig slop? Get lost. If I see either of you again, I swear I'll beat the life out of you, cheating bastards. After yelling at them, I felt as if 2 lifetimes worth of pent-up rage had finally begun to dissolve. I collapsed back into bed, dizzy and breathless. 3 days later, I was transferred back to the temporary shelter. When Darren saw me, his face was cold as ever. Come with me. Julia's mother needs help. Julia is dead. What does her mother have to do with me? I crossed my arms, glaring at him with indifference. Hazel, Darren snapped. Her father once saved your life, and you're my fiancée. Taking care of Julia and her mother is your responsibility. He looked at me with that familiar, arrogant expression. I'm calling off the engagement, I said. What did you say? Darren stared at me, completely stunned. He was the head of security at the steel plant. I was just a country girl living in his family's house. Our engagement had been arranged by our grandfathers. His mother had always been against it, but Darren's father, before his death, had made them promise to honor the agreement. That was the only reason I was ever brought into their home. In that household I did all the chores, endured his mother's constant verbal abuse, and still I fell in love with Darren at first sight. For him I bore every injustice, thinking that if I worked hard enough, his mother would eventually accept me. But even up to the moment I died, in her eyes, I was still just a burden from the countryside. Say that again, Hazel Reed, Darren demanded. I said, I'm calling off the engagement. I looked him square in the eye and spoke each word with clarity and resolve. Darren let out a hollow laugh. So now you want to challenge me? Fine. If you've got the guts, leave now. Without another word, I calmly packed my things, grabbed my bag and turned to walk away. If you walk out of that gate, our engagement is officially over, he barked. Don't ever think you can come back and be a city woman again. You're the one ending it. Don't you dare shift the blame onto me. I stopped in my tracks. Seeing me pause, Darren smirked. Changed your mind? If you know what's good for you, behave. Give me the engagement certificate, I said, extending my hand. What did you say? His eyes narrowed. I said, give me the engagement certificate. Or what? Can't bear to lose your free housemaid, Chief Miller. I mocked him coldly. His face turned red with fury. You really think you're something special? Just wait, I said. Darren stormed off and came back with the engagement contract. I took it from him and right in front of his face tore it into pieces. Goodbye, Chief Miller. Don't ever let me see your face again. Darren stood frozen, staring at the tightly shut door. For some reason his chest felt hollow, as if something inside had gone missing. At that time the entire city was still in ruins, but I walked forward determined. I made my way to the school auditorium, which had been converted into a temporary medical station. After a brief screening, I was officially accepted into the medical relief team. It was only then, as I looked at people suffering from injuries, grieving for lost loved ones, mourning the dead husbands, wives, children, that I realized how small and insignificant my obsession with love had been. I had a healthy body. I was alive. But I had never once fought back. I let myself be chained down by so-called gratitude, by emotional guilt. To say that I never noticed the affair between Darren Miller and Julia Bell in my previous life would be a lie. No woman is that blind, especially not when they were so far from discreet. But I had lost myself in my endless sacrifices. I gave and gave until I forgot who I was. Why should I have been the one to walk away from that family? Why did I have to leave? How was I supposed to live after that? A paralyzed old woman, a mother-in-law who never stopped criticizing. And there I was, bound by their manipulative praise and blame, shackled in every direction by invisible chains. They used to say I was really lucky. Even without a degree, I still managed to become a city woman. They said I was fortunate, never worked a single day, yet someone always supported me. But it wasn't that they didn't see what I had done. They just thought it was natural. They simply looked down on me. Hazel, go take care of the wounds on bed 5. A doctor's voice pulled me back to reality. Got it, I responded quickly, gathering the necessary supplies onto a tray and heading toward bed 5. Hello there. I'm here to treat your wounds, I said as I set the tray down and put on gloves. It's you. I almost didn't recognize you with the mask on, the patient in bed 5 said with a smile. I looked at him and found his eyes oddly familiar. I'm Ryan Cole, he said with a soft chuckle. I'm the one who pulled you out from the rubble. In that instant it all clicked. No wonder I recognized his eyes. At the time they were the only thing I saw before passing out. So it was you who saved me. Thank you so much, I said quickly. It wasn't just me. A group of us from the unit dug through the rubble together. I just happened to be the one closest, so I carried you out, he explained modestly. Well, thank you anyway. I smiled. Let me treat your injury first. Thanks, Ryan said, extending his injured arm. His arm was in a terrible state. Chunks of skin had fused with the fabric of his uniform. Cleaning it would take time and care. It's nothing, he said, shrugging. Just a small accident. The higher-ups insisted I get it looked at. He smiled sheepishly. I pressed on a spot gently. Ow, he yelled, jerking in pain. Okay, my bad. Ryan quickly gave in. He knew well enough to behave when a medic was working. I've made a herbal painkiller myself. It's not from the hospital, but it's safe. My father found the formula in an old medical text, and we tested it thoroughly. Want to try it? I asked. His eyes lit up. Absolutely. I lowered my voice. It's a family recipe. I get it. My lips are sealed, he replied with a grin. As we exchanged glances, I realized this young soldier was actually quite endearing, kind, respectful, with a cheerful personality. I reached into my pocket to grab the medicine, but before I could take it out, a sudden force yanked me back several steps. The tray clattered to the floor with a loud crash. Hazel Reed, so this is why you're not at home taking care of the elders, because you're out here seducing men. It was Darren Miller, seething with anger, looking at me like he just caught me cheating. I burst into laughter from sheer rage, turned around, and slapped him square across the face without hesitation. The sharp sound of the slap made Ryan, who was about to stand up, freeze in shock and sit back down. Darren Miller, your mind is truly filthy, I spat. I'm just helping a comrade who saved my life. What are you going on about? I looked at him, my voice calm but cold as ice. Darren froze in place. That line, it was one he'd once thrown at me. Back then, no matter what Julia needed, he would drop everything to help her. The one time I dared to complain, he turned to me and said coldly, Hazel Reed, your mind is really filthy. I'm just helping the daughter of the man who saved my life. What are you making a fuss for? What a perfect phrase. And now, the great Darren Miller had nothing to say. But I wasn't going to let him off the hook just yet. In my past life, Darren was hailed as a hero for rescuing Julia from the rubble. The steel plant named him Outstanding Worker. That event earned him favor with visiting officials, launching his career into the fast lane. Even his mother and Julia became more arrogant than ever. But this life, Darren Miller, you're not going anywhere. I was rescued from the area you were in charge of, I said coldly. Darren Miller, you were shouting Julia's name the entire time. Anyone who didn't know better would have thought you were leading a team solely to save her. I was calling for help and you ignored me. Who knows how many comrades suffered serious injuries or died because of your selfishness. I joined the rescue efforts of my own will. I respect and care deeply for every soldier and fellow citizen suffering through this. But you, the only person you ever see, is your precious childhood sweetheart. You tell me to go back and take care of the elderly, but that old woman is Julia Bell's biological mother. I've already given you two shameless lovers everything you could have asked for. If you want to play the doting husband, then go ahead. Just don't drag your former fiancée into your dirty mess. Now get out of here. You're in the way of treating the wounded. If this soldier suffers so much as a scratch because of you, it'll be on your head. I stared at him, ice in my voice. Darren instinctively swallowed hard. His mind buzzed and his face turned crimson. Hazel, what nonsense are you spouting? Comrade Cole, I turned to Ryan. If you've had enough of this circus, have your teammates throw this trash out. Ryan let out a light cough. He'd been watching the drama a little too intently. Li Gang, Wang Chuang, what are you two waiting for? Drag this guy out. Two soldiers with lighter injuries stepped up, and one on each side hauled Darren out of the medical tent. Hazel Reed, if you come home with me now and take care of Julia's mom, I'll marry you immediately, Darren called out, eyes locked on mine. I answered him silently with just 2 words. You idiot. Darren froze like he'd been struck by lightning. He never imagined that the girl who once worshipped him would ever treat him like this. I replaced my tools and returned to Ryan's bedside. This time he was exceptionally cooperative. From that day on, everyone at the medical station knew about the tangled mess between me, Darren Miller, and Julia Bell. The city only had a handful of temporary relief sites, and this one was full of Darren's neighbors. Once word spread that I had slapped and kicked Darren out, some neighbors who had always disapproved of him and Julia began talking. They told people what they'd seen. How Julia constantly clung to Darren, how she kept provoking me, how Darren treated me coldly, only protecting Julia while forcing me to cook, clean, and serve their entire family. Many began to feel indignant on my behalf. In just a few days, Julia Bell had become synonymous with shameless woman, and Darren Miller had officially earned the title of scumbag. One of the patients I treated turned out to be the elderly mother of the steel plant's director. 3 days later, Ryan was discharged. I walked him out personally. I knew part of why the story had spread so quickly was because of him. His injuries were mostly in the arm. His legs were fine, so he'd gone around visiting his buddies, retelling the story of how I chewed Darren out again and again. Thank you, Dr. Reed, Ryan said. No, it's me who should thank you, I replied. We smiled at each other. No more words were needed. Goodbye. Take care. Ryan walked a few steps, then suddenly turned back. Dr. Reed, what are your plans for the future? Once the relief center shuts down, I plan to return to my hometown and take care of my grandmother, I said. I'm going to take the college entrance exam. Not being able to take the exam in my past life was one of my greatest regrets. Back then, Darren was gunning for a promotion, entertaining officials, and pandering to Julia. Everything, housework, elder care, earning money, fell on me. I wasn't just doing chores and caring for 2 mothers. I was working odd jobs and washing clothes for others day and night. I was so foolish. This is my contact address, I said, handing him a small slip of paper. The military hospitals sometimes recruit staff. If there's news, I'll let you know. I accepted it with a grateful nod. This time I really am leaving, Ryan said, waving goodbye with a smile. I watched him walk away, ready to head back, when suddenly Darren's mother and Darren himself came charging toward me. Behind them were some of their relatives, our village chief, and even a few elders from the co-rented neighborhood housing unit. Just as I was about to speak, I saw Julia Bell walking over, supporting my grandmother slowly on her arm. Alarmed, I rushed to her side. Grandma, why are you here? Hazel, she coughed a few times. Hazel, dear, Julia chimed in sweetly. Grandma Reed's health has been getting worse. Her only wish before she passes is to see you get married. Julia looked at me, her smile smug and triumphant. Darren reached out and grabbed my hand. Hazel, we can't go against Grandma's wishes, Darren said. Everyone's eyes were on me. I could hear Grandma coughing behind me. Each breath labored raspy like the final buzz of an aging cicada. Hazel, you and Darren should go get the marriage certificate now, someone said. Let your grandma rest easy. Darren's mother shoved a recommendation letter into my hand. Her smile practically screamed, in the end, you still have to be our Miller family's daughter-in-law. Serving us is your fate. I clutched that letter tightly, resisting the urge to tear it into shreds and hurl it at her face. I wanted to slap Darren and Julia right then and there, those 2 smug, despicable people. But when I met Grandma's expectant gaze, I forced myself to hold back. Grandma, I hesitated, struggling to find the words. Grandma gently pushed Julia's hand off her arm and looked at me. Hazel, are they bullying you? I froze. Darren, his mother, and Julia were all stunned by her sudden question. Grandma, what do you mean? Didn't you want Hazel and Darren to get married? Julia asked sweetly. Without warning, Grandma turned around and slapped Julia hard across the face. You shameless little. You think I can't see what's going on between you two? I may be old, but I'm not blind. You crazy old hag. How dare you hit someone? Darren finally lost it and shouted at my grandmother. He reached out, but I shoved him away hard and stood protectively in front of her. At that moment, my uncles led by the village chief stepped forward and surrounded us, forming a protective wall between me and the Miller family. What are you doing bullying someone from the Reed family? The village chief said, his voice low but firm. The Reed men were strong and broad-shouldered. Just their presence was enough to overwhelm Darren's side. Darren's mother quickly plastered on a fake smile and stepped forward. Village chief brothers, aren't we all here today to witness the kid's wedding? Witness my ass. Grandma snapped. Her shout was followed by another round of coughing. I immediately started patting her back. You think we don't know what kind of person Hazel is? The moment you got here, you said she was disobedient, selfish, always showing her face in public, and flirting with male comrades. But we raised Hazel. We know her character. She's one of the kindest, most responsible girls we've ever known. You came here to shame her, to pressure her into staying in your family. Don't think we don't see right through your city slicker tricks. You just want to bully her into being your servant. Who the hell do you think you are? What gives you the right to treat Hazel this way? My uncle spoke one after another, furious and protective. I couldn't hold back anymore. The tears I had been forcing down came rushing out, hot and relentless. My heart felt warm for the first time in a long time. Grandma squeezed my hand tightly. Don't be afraid, Hazel. As long as I'm alive, they won't dare hurt you. I nodded hard. Miller family, listen closely, Grandma declared. From this moment forward, our Reed family severs all ties with you. There will be no marriage between our families. You go your way and we'll go ours. If you so much as try to bother Hazel again, I'll sit right in front of the steel plant and make a scene. You think being a government worker makes you untouchable? I'll speak to your superiors myself and ask them what kind of morals they're teaching you. Darren's relatives, who had come along so confidently, now looked around awkwardly, unsure of what to say. In the end, none of them dared step forward. Darren's mother stomped her foot furiously. Hazel Reed, say it yourself. Are you going to marry my son or not? No, I said firmly. She pointed at me, her hand trembling. You ungrateful brat. Without Darren, how do you expect to become a city woman? I'd rather marry a pig or a dog than your precious Darren Miller, I said coldly. Let's see how well. Your Miller family and that Bell family survive without me around to prop you up. Darren's mother looked like she was going to explode. Darren stared at me like he'd just been punched in the chest. Finally, he grabbed Julia's hand. Come on, Julia. Let's go home. Fine, go home, I thought to myself. I'll be waiting for the day he regrets everything and comes crawling back. After the Miller family and their people left, thoroughly humiliated, I supported Grandma as we made our way back to my dormitory. The village chief and a few elders from the village were waiting at the door, giving us space so Grandma and I could talk alone. Hazel, I'm fine, Grandma said gently. The weather's been changing these past few days, and the air hasn't been great. That's why I've been coughing. But don't worry, I'll be fine after resting a bit at home. Grandma, are you really working as a doctor at the medical station now? She asked, changing the subject. I nodded. It's volunteer work really, but for now I'm still able to help others and I want to stay. Once the medical center disbands, I'll come back home to be with you. Grandma patted my hand firmly. Good girl. Stay and do your work. You make me so proud. Back home, your uncles, the village chief, and all the aunties will take care of me. You don't need to worry. Thank you, Grandma. My heart was full of warmth. We chatted for a while longer, talking about family matters. Finally, Grandma stood up and left with the elders. Before leaving, they even left behind bags of food for me. After sending them off, I went right back to work. I gave it my all, being gentle, patient, and respectful with everyone who needed help. My skills were efficient and precise, so it didn't take long before everyone at the medical station knew me. People started calling me Dr. Reed with warmth and familiarity. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly fulfilled. This feeling of being needed was incredible. The way people sincerely thanked me was something I had never experienced before. Not like in my past life when Darren's mother and Julia's mother never had a kind word for me despite all the care I gave them. Every word they said to me was cold and cruel. I looked up at the sun in the sky. The sunlight felt warm and real. A month later, the medical station closed, and it was time for me to return home. Before I left, the head of the clinic wrote me a letter of commendation and issued an official certificate for my time serving at the temporary medical center. "Hazel, don't give up on your studies," he told me. "You must become a real doctor." I nodded with determination. "I will keep studying." After saying goodbye to the director, I returned to the village. Grandma was overjoyed to see me home. She rushed to air out the bedding, cooked delicious meals for me, and even started cleaning the house. That little old lady walked circles around the courtyard until the village aunties had to come over and help her back inside. "We've got plenty of people here," one of them said. "You don't need to lift a finger." Being home filled my heart with so much peace. The village chief talked with me and officially made me the village's second barefoot doctor. Thanks to my experience at the medical station, I was especially skilled at handling external injuries. I kept reading and learning. Grandma even secretly pulled out the medical books my father had hidden away and let me study them at night. I learned many new herbal formulas and started helping Grandma with her own health. When I had free time, I'd go into the mountains to pick herbs. I gave them away to villagers for free. They were my family after all. Under my care, Grandma's condition improved significantly. She no longer coughed as often, and that gave me a deep sense of accomplishment. In the blink of an eye, I had been home for 5 months. In the first month after returning, I wrote a letter to Ryan Cole. He replied right away. For the past 5 months we had been corresponding regularly. He told me stories about life and training in the military, and I shared news and anecdotes from our village. A week ago he wrote that he had some incredible news to share. In my reply, I playfully speculated about what it could be. But just after mailing the letter, Ryan appeared in our village in person. "Ryan Cole, what are you doing here?" I was stunned to see him standing in front of me. "I came to deliver the good news in person," he said with a bright grin. "What kind of news couldn't be written in a letter? You had to come all the way here?" I asked, confused. Ryan looked a little disappointed, but he quickly smiled again. "I happened to be in the area on business, so I thought I'd drop by to see you." Then he added, "Our military hospital in the district is recruiting. Would you like to join?" My mind lit up instantly, and I was just about to nod when Ryan continued. "Anyway, I already signed you up. If you're interested, you can come with me in a couple of days and take the entrance exam directly. If you don't want to go, that's fine too," Ryan said casually. "Just skip the exam." "I want to go," I replied instantly. Ryan beamed. "That's great. Pack your things. I'll come pick you up in a couple of days and we'll go together. It's not safe for a woman to travel alone, but with me around it'll be much safer, and your family will feel better too." He gave his chest a proud pat. I smiled. "All right. Thank you, Ryan. Don't mention it. If you end up working at the military hospital, that'll be perfect. Next time I've got a headache or something, I'll come straight to you." He grinned. Just then Grandma walked in. Seeing how animated our conversation was, she looked at Ryan suspiciously. "Hazel, who is this?" she asked cautiously. "Grandma, this is Ryan Cole. He's the one who pulled me out of the rubble," I explained. Grandma immediately stepped forward and grabbed Ryan's hand tightly. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Thank you. Thank you, child. Come inside. Grandma will cook you a feast." Ryan, overwhelmed by her warmth, was pulled into the house without resistance. In less than 10 minutes, the entire village had heard the news that the soldier who saved me had come to visit. Suddenly, our home was bustling with people. They brought all kinds of gifts. Cured meat, live chickens, mushrooms, potatoes, fresh vegetables, even fish. Ryan turned bright red, completely unable to fend off everyone's overwhelming enthusiasm. He glanced at me from behind the crowd, silently pleading for help. I smiled and stepped forward. "Uncles, aunties, everyone. This is more than enough. Comrade Cole will be leaving soon. He only has time for one meal, and if he takes any of this back with him, it'll violate military protocol," I added with a smile. Only then did everyone start to disperse slowly and reluctantly. 2 of the village aunties stayed behind to help cook. Ryan finally let out a long sigh of relief and stood next to me. "I had no idea you were so popular," he said with a grin. Of course this is my home, I replied proudly. Ryan gave a contented smile, but didn't say anything else. After a hearty meal at our house, he said goodbye and left. When I returned to my room, I noticed he had secretly left a thick stack of ration coupons on my desk. That evening, I told Grandma about the military hospital's recruitment for medical officers. "Hazel, it's time for you to go out into the world," she said warmly. "You're capable, and I believe you'll help many people in the future." My eyes stung with tears. "Grandma, once I get settled, I want you to come live with me. Wherever I go, you'll come too." Grandma smiled gently. "One day, I'll come help our Hazel raise her children." I hugged her tightly. Outside the window, the moonlight felt especially gentle that night. 3 days later, Ryan came to pick me up. We boarded the southbound train together and arrived at his military unit. He arranged for me to stay temporarily at the guest dormitory. A week later, the entrance exams officially began. The first round was a written test. I ranked first. Then came the hands-on exams, suturing and pharmacology. I took first place in both as well. With pride and honor, I officially became a military doctor. Ryan went through the onboarding process with me, and even helped move all my belongings into my assigned dorm room. I was given a private room on the first floor with its own small courtyard. It was slightly damp, but the independent space was spacious enough, and I really liked it. At first, I wanted Grandma to move in with me, but she declined. She still preferred the peaceful life in the countryside. I couldn't change her mind, so I let it go. Before officially starting work, we were given a week of leave to settle in, organize our rooms, and buy essentials. With Ryan's help, I finished setting up quickly. To thank him, I cooked an elaborate meal and invited him over. During dinner, he seemed like he wanted to say something, but kept hesitating. Of course, I noticed. "Ryan Cole, do you have something you want to say to me?" I asked directly. His entire face turned bright red. It took Ryan a long moment to summon his courage. Finally, he looked at me with complete sincerity in his eyes and asked, "Comrade Hazel Reed, would you be willing to become my revolutionary partner?" His eyes were so earnest, but I still shook my head firmly. "Comrade Ryan, you're a great person," I said. "But right now, I want to focus all of my energy on work and study." Ryan looked a little hurt, his smile forced. "All right, Hazel Reed, just promise me you'll keep working hard." I nodded with conviction. In this life, I wouldn't let anyone hold me back. I would keep moving forward and upward, determined to realize my own value. And my value would never be tied to cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, or serving anyone. I believed in my ability to help more people. I had a future I was going to shape for myself. After that day, Ryan still came to see me from time to time. We occasionally had meals or strolled through the market together, but neither of us pushed for anything more. Soon it was September of 1977. News of the reinstated college entrance exam had spread across the country. I applied through the hospital to take the exam that year. By the end of October, I finally stepped into the testing hall. I took every question seriously. The material on the exam wasn't difficult for me. After the test, I felt like I had just crossed into a new world, like my entire destiny was now truly in my own hands. Ryan had accompanied me the entire time. He cooked for me, supported me, but never once asked about my score. 1 month later, I received my admission letter from the Military Medical University. I went to the base to find Ryan in person. When he saw me, he was stunned and then thrilled. "Ryan Cole, I got accepted into the Military Medical University," I announced, handing him the letter. "That's amazing, Hazel," he beamed. "Congratulations, you'll be going to Beijing. That's so far away. Let me take some time off and escort you." Realizing he might have spoken too boldly, he hesitated and looked a little embarrassed. "All right," I said. "Come with me. I'll apply for leave now." "Thank you, Ryan Cole," I added. He scratched his head shyly. "Don't mention it. Just promise to keep writing to me." "Okay." We traveled to Beijing together a week before classes started. I finally stepped onto the campus of my dream school. For grueling years flew by. I became known as the most hardworking student in school, someone who practically lived in the lab and library. I did have a few admirers during college, but I turned all of them down. By the time I graduated, Ryan had already been promoted to battalion commander. He was the one who came to pick me up on graduation day. We laughed and chatted as we walked, our conversation light and relaxed. But just then a disheveled, ragged man stumbled out from the crowd and blocked my path. The man before me was old, worn, and haggard. I stared for a few seconds before I realized it was Darren Miller. "Hazel, Hazel," he cried. "I knew you wouldn't forget me. Do you remember Max?" I froze for a moment. Darren Miller had also been reborn. My eyes turned cold and sharp, but Darren clung to the moment like a drowning man grasping for a lifeline. "Hazel, Max is our son," he shouted. "Max Miller, that little ungrateful brat." Ryan, enraged by Darren's words, walked up and punched him hard in the face. Darren stumbled and fell to the ground. I reached out to stop Ryan before he could throw another punch. He stood over Darren and said in a low, icy voice, "Darren Miller, interfering with a military marriage is a crime." "Military marriage?" Darren's eyes widened. "You're married?" "No way, Hazel. You wouldn't marry someone else. You loved me too much to ever do that." I couldn't help but laugh at his ridiculous confidence. "Let's go, Ryan." "He's not worth our time." Ryan gave Darren a fierce glare and walked beside me. Darren struggled to his feet, staggering after us. He shouted at the top of his lungs, "Hazel, I was wrong. It wasn't that you couldn't live without me. It's that I can't live without you. Please come back to me. Don't marry anyone else." His cries were desperate and heartbreaking. Many passers-by turned to stare at him, but neither Ryan nor I looked back. We went to a state-run restaurant for lunch. It wasn't until we sat down that Ryan finally realized something and looked up at me. "Hazel, when you said military marriage, were you talking about me?" Ryan looked at me with eyes full of warmth. I looked back at him, smiled, and reached out my hand. "Comrade Ryan Cole," I said, "please take care of me for the rest of our lives." He immediately grasped my hand and responded, "Comrade Hazel Reed, it's my honor. You just tell me what to do and I'll do it, whatever it is." I couldn't help but laugh at his earnest, slightly goofy expression. That very day, we bought our tickets and returned to the base together. I went back to work and he submitted our marriage application. Not long after, we officially became husband and wife. It was Ryan who found out what happened to Darren Miller and shared the news with me. Shortly after I had returned to the countryside that year, Darren was demoted from his position as department head and reassigned as a regular worker. Julia Bell's reputation had completely tanked. Eventually, the two of them had no choice but to get married. Julia's mother, who was paralyzed and needed full-time care, moved in with them. Julia only lasted a few days before she started getting impatient. The house became a mess. At first, Darren's mother tried to tolerate it, but eventually, her passive-aggressive remarks started flying. Then the fighting started. Loud, ugly arguments almost every day. Darren's work life didn't go any better. At the steel plant, his colleagues mocked and shunned him. At home, he was stuck in the middle of constant clashes between his mother, his mother-in-law, and his wife. The tension gave him splitting headaches. One night, after yet another poor night of sleep, Darren made a critical mistake during a shift, causing a major loss for the plant. He was fired on the spot. What Ryan didn't know was that Darren had regained his memories from his past life. Back then, it was me who held down the fort so he could shine. He was proud and unstoppable. But Julia, having been spoiled from childhood, had no skills, let alone the ability to be a capable partner. Darren even had to wash his own clothes. So he became desperate to find me. After learning I was studying at the Military Medical University, he showed up trying to win me back. But in this life, I had no intention of getting involved in their twisted drama. I sincerely wished them nothing but a lifetime of rot together. "What are you thinking about?" Ryan asked as he pulled me into his arms. I looked up at him and said, "I'm thinking about how many kids we should have." Ryan let out a hearty laugh, and in that moment, wrapped in his embrace, I felt it. We had found our happiness, and it was beautiful. The end. Enjoyed this rebirth revenge story? Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more powerful tales of second chances. And comment below. Would you forgive or move on?